Hey guys, sorry it took me so long to get this second video up, but now it's ready to go. I'm here. We're going to put the load up for the distance formula. Now this is the distance formula with just the coordinates, not with the graph. I am going to be demonstrating the lesson with the graph, but the numbers and the problems are on the paper only. There is no X and Y axis. I'm going to show you a picture of it, but that doesn't mean we're going to solve it using the X and Y axis. So a lot of what you guys need to understand is just what we're doing, how to solve the math using the distance formula. We're going to talk a little bit about that and translate the distance formula for you. I did it a little bit on the example from the previous video. You're going to see it more in detail here. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to get started. Oops, let's do it again. Alright, so here's the graph. Now again, we're not using the graph for the sake of the work. We're going to be using the graph to demonstrate kind of what's happening with the problem overall. So the first problem, we'll always do the first problem. The first problem is located at 2 and 2, and the second problem is located at 8 and 5. Now again, if I'm there and I'm at 8 and 5, I'm trying to identify this distance, but now I know where I'm going to start working. Again, I would not be able to draw this. Again, 8, 5, 2, 2. You have to learn how to identify and calculate the distance without the imaginary triangle. Okay, you cannot do the triangle at this point. You must show distance formula. So let's start off from the very beginning. Right? D equals. Now normally I write it d squared. I prefer to write it d squared because then it's x2 minus x1, just like slope, just like all of those previous problems we had done, y2 minus y1 squared. Now again, this is the same thing as the distance formula because what ends up happening is you're doing all of this math based on the square root here. And so again, to know what the distance formula looks like, okay, there we are. Now, in the process of doing this, you're going to have to then go back to what we did old school. Now, most of you guys will remember, this should be x, y. This then becomes x, y. Now, I'm going to make the 2's my 2, just to kind of remember it that way. But again, x2 minus x1 is 8 minus 5. I'm going to square that. Okay. Oh, excuse me. 8 minus 2. I forgot. This 8x and this 2x plus my 5 minus 2 squared. Now again, 8 minus 2 is 6 squared plus 5 minus 2 is 3 squared. Now we're going back to the basics of Pythagorean theorem because this is still d squared. So c squared equals b squared plus a squared. D equals this difference, the change of x versus the change of y. You then add these together. So d squared equals 36 plus 9, which equals 45. So now basically what you're doing is you're taking the radical, the d squared is equal to 45. You need the radical of 45. D equals the radical. Now you go back to the basic math. The basic math and the understanding of breaking it down. 9 and 5. This is prime factorization. 3 and 3. So here we go. D equals the radical of 3 and 3 and 5. This goes back to the simplifying radicals lesson. The 3's get to go outside. So then D equals 3 outside, 5 inside, and I would write it 3 rad 5. This is what I want to see in the computer when you turn in the assignment, but this is the answer so that you know how it's translated. Okay, this was example number 1. This is number 1, so we know which problem we're doing. We're going to jump down and do number 4 to help you out. Now again, as we're doing problem number 4, take a look at what we have. Problem number 4 shows me negative 12, positive 12. So that would be up here somewhere, which is way off my screen and I can't see it. And then I have positive 12, negative 4, which is this huge line that goes all the way across my screen. Okay, huge line goes all the way across my screen. I got to work with this huge distance. Now again, what do you understand? I understand that this is negative 12, positive 12. I understand that this is positive 12, negative 2. Again, being able to manage the coordinates. Going back to the distance formula, we write it down. D squared equals x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. I go back and I have to remember that I need to label my numbers. x1, y1, x2, y2. And again, being able to label and understand my number values, being able to work with what's there. Okay, let's try something else. Take these problems. x2, 12, minus a negative 12, and then I square it. I have to add that to the y's. So my y2 is already negative 2, and I'm minusing the 12 from over here. It's positive, so I don't have to worry about another minus. And then I square that. Bring this down. Now a minus and a minus, most of you would know. 24 squared plus negative 14 squared. Okay, now I actually have to be able to know those things. You understand the formality of it, being able to work with the numbers, being able to know. Now these numbers get pretty big. I would encourage you to have a calculator at this point, so I had to get mine. So 24 squared is 576 plus, that would be negative 14 squared, so this is 196, just like I showed you in class. But 196 plus 576 gives me d squared equals 772. I'm going to bring the work over here. D is equal to then the radical of 772. I don't know this number, but all I can do is divide it by 2 to get the basics. So 2, 386, divided by 2 again. I get 193. I don't know if it goes any further than that. I'm pretty much assuming that if I divided it by 3, it doesn't work. So what I end up having is that D is equal to the radical of 2, 2, and 193, which basically means the 2's get to go outside. So D is 2 radical 193. And again, if I had to write this into the computer, turn in my assignment, it would be 2 rad 193 altogether. Alright, so again, what do you see? You see the distance formula that comes into the Pythagorean theorem based on the rate of change of x and y. Here's my squared, here's my squared. I figured that out. I then, just like the Pythagorean theorem, I have to take my c squared, but in this case it's d squared, take the square root, prime factorization until I can't go any further. Partners go out. The answer is 2 rad 193 when you enter it into the computer. I hope this works out for you guys. Please be very careful with your negatives. Make sure you're keeping an eye and watching what's happening, and then we'll talk later. If you guys have questions, send me a message. I hope everything's working out. You're going to get a posted review of your test tomorrow, Wednesday, and then there will be an open test Friday. It closes at 4 p.m. Good luck, you guys. I wish you the best. Send me a comment. Let me know what's going on if you have questions. Bye.